Good morning students, this is 12th class biology, lecture 2 of chapter 6, molecular basis of inheritance. Topics that you will learn today are calculation of length of human DNA, DNA packaging, Griffith's experiment, and biochemical characterization of transforming principle. So let's start with calculation of length of human DNA. Total number of base pairs in human genome is 6.6 into 10 to the power 9. These number of base pairs, you can say nitrogenous base pairs, are present in human DNA in one cell. Okay, you can say in diploid set of chromosome. Now distance between two base pairs, you know about it because you have done about the double helical structure of DNA, and distance between two base pairs is given there, so that is 0.34 nanometer, right? Or we can say 0.34 into 10 to the power minus 9 meter. Okay, nanometer can be written as 10 to the power minus 9 meter. Okay, so how will we calculate the length of human DNA? So length of DNA will be 6.6 into 10 to the power 10 to the power 9 base pair, means these, multiplied by this distance between two base pairs, means 0.34 into 10 to the power minus 9 meter. After calculating it, we will get the result 2.2 meters. So length of human DNA is 2.2 meters, because DNA is 2.2 meter long, and cell diameter is not enough to accommodate such a long length of DNA. That's why packaging of DNA is required. So here we have prokaryotic DNA packaging. In prokaryotes, negatively charged DNA is simply packaged with the positively charged proteins like this. Okay, these negatively charged DNA will be coiled around the positively charged proteins and will get packaged to form the nucleoid inside the prokaryotic cell. Now in case of eukaryotes, DNA is negatively charged polymer which is compactly packed inside the chromatin around a ball of positively charged proteins, and these positively charged proteins in case of eukaryotes are called histone proteins. The octamer of histone protein is wrapped with the DNA helix. Here octamer of histone proteins, because one histone is made up of many subunits, and that is 8 subunits are present here for the histone protein, and that's why this is called octamer of histone. And DNA helix is wrapped around this octamer of histone, means octamer of histone means histone having 8 subunits. So is wrapped with the DNA helix, giving rise to a structure called nucleosome. Here you can see how this nucleosome is formed. This yellow colored part is present here. This is having 8 subunits of histone proteins, and this is called core of histone molecule. And this pink color structure which is wrapped around it is DNA helix. Okay, so this is DNA helix, negatively charged DNA helix coiled around the positively charged histone. Why these histones are positively charged? Because of the presence of basic amino acids like lysine and arginine. So here this negatively charged DNA is packaged by wrapping around the positively charged proteins, histone proteins. So this is called core histone, this yellow colored part having 8 subunits, and this is another histone that is called H1 histone. This H1 histone is present here with the linker DNA. So here this part of the DNA which is present between two nucleosomes from here, because next nucleosome will be started. Okay, so this part is present, linker present here is called linker DNA, and to hold this linker DNA, or you can say for the packaging of this linker DNA, this H1 histone is present here. Now you can see here, this is octamer of histone. Here you can see 8 subunits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 subunits are present here, and out of these 8 subunits, 2 are H2A, Okay, H2A, H2A. Two subunits are H2A, then two are H2B. So these are H2B, two are H3, and two are H4. So you can say that in these 8 subunits, four types of subunits are present, and these types are H2A, H2B, H3, and H4. Okay, and fifth type of histone is present as H1 histone, which is present in the to hold the linker DNA, right? As you have seen in the last picture. Now, this structure will be formed like this, like beads on a string. Okay, means one histone core will be present around which DNA will be wrapped. Then it will be wrapped to the next core histone. So this complete structure will be looked like beads on a string. And this complete nucleosome, one complete nucleosome structure can hold nearly 200 base pairs of DNA. So here you can see 146 base pairs of DNA are present around the core histone molecule, and 20 to 80 base pairs are present in this length, linker DNA. So this complex structure, which is formed by the you can say by the combination of histone and DNA, that will form a structure called chromatin. So chromatin is the complex combination of DNA and histone proteins that makes up chromosome with the help of non-histone chromosomal proteins. Because this structure, means this chromatin, it forms, and later on by condensation it will form the chromosomes. Okay, and how it will condense? With the help of non-histone chromosomal proteins. So here you can see this is one nucleosome. Okay, this pink color structure is DNA helix. Then this H1 histone is present here in the to hold the linker DNA. Okay, then this is next nucleosome structure. So these nucleosome structures are formed like this, like beads on a string, and then will form a structure like this. Okay, in a cell, inside a cell. So this complete complex structure is called chromatin, and this chromatin later on forms the solenoid and then chromosomes. Okay, there are stages then of the condensation of the chromatin material. This chromatin material, you remember, this is present in the interphase stage of the cell. Okay, and later on after condensation in metaphase stage, chromosomes are formed. Okay, this formation starts in the prophase, and then metaphase stage you can easily observe the chromosomes, right? So this chromatin undergoes condensation and then form the chromosomes, and here non-histone non-chromosomal proteins help the condensation of chromatin and to convert these chromatin to chromosome. Now this chromatin is of two types, heterochromatin and euchromatin. Heterochromatin is highly condensed structure and it is not transcribed. So you can say transcriptionally inactive. While euchromatin is not highly condensed. Okay, and this is transcriptionally active structure. Next topic is Griffith's experiment. So Griffith's experiment was done in 1928 by Frederick Griffith. So Griffith used 2 strains of Streptococcus pneumonia for his experiment. Streptococcus pneumonia is a bacteria, and 2 strains of this bacteria are found, and these 2 strains are smooth strain, that is called type 3S strain, and second one is rough strain, that is called type 2R strain. So these 2 strains are available in Streptococcus pneumonia bacteria. So Griffith used these 2 types of strain for his experiment, and he then uses the bacteria, means these 2 strains of the bacteria, to infect the mice. Properties of these 2 strains. S strain is called smooth strain of bacteria, which is encapsulated with the polysaccharide, means polysaccharide covering is present over this bacteria. As the polysaccharide is a virulent factor Why this is called virulent factor? Because this polysaccharide covering or the bacteria or the strain of bacteria provides the resistance power to this bacteria against the immune system of mice or human being. Hence, S3 strain will act as virulent or wild strain because this polysaccharide covering will provide the resistance power. That's why this bacterial strain will not be killed by the human immune system or by the mice immune system, and that's why it will be able to infect, or you can say will be able to cause the pneumonia in bacteria, and that's why it is called virulent or wild strain of bacteria. Then second is R strain, that is also called rough strain. And why it is called rough strain? Because it lacks the polysaccharide covering. Okay, and because of the lack of polysaccharide covering, it is not able to resist, or you can say it is not able to protect itself from the immune system of mice or human being, and that's why it is killed by the immune system. That's why it will not cause pneumonia in the mice, and that's why we can say this is non-virulent strain or mutant strain or avirulent strain it can be called. So Griffith started his experiment with mice. First of all, he took R strain of bacteria Streptococcus pneumonia and injected this R strain of bacteria in the mice. Here Griffith used many mice for the experiment, but I am showing only one. Okay, so Griffith injected R strain in mice, and he observed that there was no symptom of pneumonia in the mice, and all the mice were alive. Secondly, he injected S strain of the bacteria, means virulent strain of bacteria was injected in the mice, and he observed that pneumonia appeared in the mice, many of the mice, and mice were dead. Next, he heat killed S strain, and by heat killing of S strain, its virulent property was lost, due to which what happened when he injected this heat killed S strain in mice, there was no pneumonia symptom in the mice and mice were alive. Next, he mixed this heat killed S strain with the R strain of same bacteria and injected this mixture in the mice. And surprisingly, because individually R strain and heat killed S strain both are not able to cause pneumonia in the mice or to kill the mice, but when these are combined and injected in the mice, mice were dead. Later on, Griffith recovered live S cells, or you can say live S strain, S type of bacteria from these dead mice, but he injected you can say heat killed S strain type bacteria. Now from where these live S cells, or you can say live S bacteria came? So on the basis of these observations, he concluded that R strain bacteria had been transformed by S strain bacteria, means those dead form of S strain bacteria, you can say heat killed form of S strain bacteria, have transferred something to the S strain of bacteria and have changed those R strain bacteria to the S strain. So the R strain inherited some transforming principle from the heat killed S strain bacteria, which made them virulent, means there is something which is coming from the heat killed S strain bacteria, and due to which these R strain, means non-virulent strain of bacteria, are becoming virulent, and he assumed this transforming principle as genetic material. So the something which is transferring from heat killed S strain bacteria to the R strain of bacteria, Griffith named it as transforming principle, and he said that this transforming principle is genetic material, but he was not able to tell about the biochemical nature of this genetic material. So next is biochemical characterization of transforming principle. Means whether it is protein, DNA, RNA, lipid, carbohydrate, because all these things are present inside a cell. So it can be anything which has been transferred from the heat killed S strain to the R strain. Okay, so it was experimentally proved by Avery, MacLeod and McCarthy that what is exactly chemical nature of or biochemical nature of the transforming principle. So what they did, first of all, they took heat killed S strain and extracted all the components from these cells. Means they took separately RNA, proteins, DNA, lipids and carbohydrates. All these components were taken separately, and these molecules were tested for the transformation of R strain cell. Means first of all, they mixed RNA of the heat killed S with the R cells, with the, you can say, R strain of the bacteria, and then observe that it is transformed or not. Means R strain has been changed into S strain or not. So they observed that there was no transformation. Means R strain was present as it is. It has not been converted into S strain. So there was no transformation in the first experiment. Secondly, they used protein for the same procedure was done. Protein of the S strain was mixed with the R strain. Okay, and again they observed that there was no transformation. R strain was present as it is. In next experiment, they took DNA, and DNA of S strain was mixed with the R strain of bacteria, and in this case they observed that there was transformation. Means S strain bacteria has been formed. Live S strain bacteria had been formed. So transformation was occurring here in case of when they took DNA from the heat killed S strain. Next, they repeated same with the lipid and carbohydrate also, and they observed that there was no transformation. So only in case of DNA they observed that there was transformation. It means that DNA of the S strain, heat killed S strain bacteria, was able to transform the R strain bacteria into S strain. Okay, later on to prove it more, to confirm this thing, they did one more experiment. In this, what they did, they took heat killed S bacteria. Okay, and then took all the things, means hair, lipids, carbohydrates, DNA, RNA, all the components of the cell within same test tube, and then first of all they added some proteinases in it. Proteinases are the enzymes which can digest proteins, which can destroy the proteins. Okay, and on destroying the proteins, again they observed that there was transformation. There was no effect of the digestion of proteins here. It means in transformation there is no role of proteins. Okay, they observed this thing, that after the digestion of proteins, means after adding the enzyme proteinases, there was no effect on transformation. Still R cells were transforming to form the S cells. Okay, S cell appeared in the mixture. It means there was no role of protein in the transformation. Same thing they found with the RNA. When they added RNAs, there was no effect on the transformation. Still they observed the S type of bacteria in the mixture. But when they added DNAs, DNAs are enzyme which can digest DNA. Okay, when they added DNAs, they observed that there was no transformation. Means no S type of bacteria were observed in the mixture. Means transformation has been stopped here, or you can say it was interrupted by something. So what was that thing? That was enzyme, DNAs, that has destroyed the structure of DNA. It means only DNA is the component, DNA is the molecule that is playing a role in the transformation. Only after the destroying of DNA, transformation is disturbing. Okay, so they gave conclusion that DNA is the transforming factor, means the transforming principle that Griffiths talked about. It is DNA, which has transformed the R strain to the virulent type, means R strain to the S type, virulent type. Therefore, DNA is the heritable material which has transferred the virulence from the dead or heat killed S strain to the R strain. Your homework for today is: first question, what is difference between DNAs and DNAs? Second question, define transformation. Third question, differentiate euchromatin and heterochromatin. And fourth question, describe the steps of Griffith's experiment. Now, solutions of NCERT questions that I gave in homework. So first question was, group the following as nitrogenous bases and nucleosides. This thing you have learnt in class 11th, and you must know the difference between the nitrogenous bases and nucleosides. So nitrogenous bases are adenine, thymine, cytosine, uracil, guanine, right? And when these nitrogenous bases combine with the sugar, these make nucleosides, and these nucleosides are like cytidine, guanosine. Okay, so here adenine is a nitrogenous base, cytidine, cytosine is a nitrogenous base, and when it combines with sugar it makes cytidine. So cytidine is here nucleoside, so this is nucleoside. Thymine is nitrogenous base, guanosine. When guanine means a nitrogenous base combined with sugar, it makes guanosine. So guanosine is also a nucleoside. Uracil is nitrogenous base and cytosine is also nitrogenous base. Second question was, if double-stranded DNA has 20% of cytosine, then calculate the percentage of adenine. So if 20% cytosine is given, then according to the law, means according to Chargaff's rule, it would have 20% of guanine, because according to Chargaff's rule, C is equal to G, or you can say cytosine is always equal to guanine. That's why if 20% cytosine is given, then guanine will also be 20%. Thus the percentage of G plus C content will be 40%. Okay, 20 plus 20, there will be 40% G plus C, and then remaining 60%, means total 100% will be there. So 100 minus 40, there will be 60% will be left for the adenine and thymine, right? So 60% represents both adenine and thymine molecule. Okay, and you know, according to Chargaff's rule, A is equal to T, means adenine is always equal to thymine. That's why we can divide it by 2. Okay, and we can calculate the percentage of either adenine or thymine. So the percentage of adenine molecule is 30%. Third question was, sequence of DNA strand is given, and you need to write down the sequence of complementary strand in 5' to 3' direction. You must remember the direction. Okay, you need to focus on the direction, that in what direction that complementary strand is asked. So that sequence of nucleotide means that complementary strand in 5' to 3' direction will be this: GC80, 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 right, like this.